Stella wrote, I'm reading the book called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. He believes progress comes from monopoly, not competition. What's your perspective of monopolistic and an oligopolistic market? Yeah, I read that book too. So Warren Buffett even said he loves to invest in companies that might have monopoly. And if you have a monopoly on a market, then you can charge higher prices because there's no competition, undercut you anyway, and you can make a fortune. And if you find companies that are so damn powerful that they can charge a premium for their product and nobody else can compete, and that's usually an amazing investment. And so a monopoly example was a Standard Oil. So there's this man named John D. Rockefeller. I'm smiling because a lot of rap music my little sister used to listen to, they always had the word Rockefeller in it. But anyway, whatever. But John D. Rockefeller, what he did was he owned that company called Standard Oil. It was so big that nobody could compete with him. And what happened was the U.S. government said, enough is enough. Competition is good for the consumer. We got to break you up. And so what the American government did in the 1900s is they broke up Standard Oil into lots of different companies. And that's why actually, so in America, there's a gas station called Esso, ESSO. The reason it's called Esso is because it's really the letter S and the letter O, Standard Oil. And so the government broke up Standard Oil. And the government did the same thing as well to the telecommunications sector with Bell. So AT&T, as we know it today, AT&T, they're a mobile phone company. They do other stuff as well. They were just the long distance arm of Bell. So when Bell got broken up, Bell Telephone, founded by Alexander Graham Bell, what happened was there's Baby Bells all over the country. There's Pacific Bell. There's Northeastern Bell, whatever. There's Bell Canada, Southeast Bell. And then there's also Lucent, which was Bell Labs, the R&D arm. It got broken up because they were too powerful. And it's a good thing because governments do have noble intentions when it comes to breaking up monopolies, because they want to protect the consumer. They want to make sure there's enough competition out there so that better products are available at lower prices. When Microsoft had a monopoly on Windows and they had 95% share in the 90s, amazing, under Bill Gates. And when a founder leaves a company, they usually don't do as well. But I think Satya Nadella is amazing at Microsoft. But in the late 90s, the Department of Justice, the DOJ, and Janet Reno, they tried to break up Microsoft, and they wanted to call those the baby bills. They want to break up Microsoft into Windows operating systems, and then also into Office. Microsoft Office was so powerful back then, and so they wanted to break it up, and the EU, and I love the EU because they kind of keep all companies in check from a privacy perspective too. But the EU forced Microsoft to offer a version of Windows without Windows Explorer. And Bill Gates is so brilliant, man. So for those of you that are nerds and have been Windows fans for years like I have, back in 1995, when Windows 95 came out, the way that you would look at files in your computer in Windows 95 and Windows 3.1 and earlier was use a product called File Manager. And then what happened was Netscape went public. Ticker was NSCP in 1995. And the Netscape browser was awesome. And Microsoft felt threatened by Netscape. And so December 7th, which is, I think, the anniversary for when the U.S. entered the war, Pearl Harbor was bombed. But on December 7th, 1995, Bill Gates declared war on Netscape in an internal email and memo went to all employees saying that we missed the boat on internet. We have to incorporate internet technologies, IP protocols, whatever, TCP, IP, all that good stuff, into all of our products. And they bought Front Page, which was owned by a company called Vermeer, and kind of incorporated that into a bunch of their products. They came up with a lot of great internet products. And then what they did was they said, you know what, dude? We got to make a browser. And so they made a browser called IE, or Internet Explorer. And what they did was after a while, they're like, oh my goodness, from an antitrust perspective, if they bundle this browser with Windows, it might put Netscape out of business and antitrust will get upset and try to break up the company. So what Bill Gates did was brilliant when he was testifying. I remember he was rocking back and forth in 1999. Motion creates emotion, right? It's brilliant. What Bill Gates did was he said, well, we're going to rename it from Internet Explorer to Windows Explorer, because you browse your computer for files, like you browse the internet as well. It was brilliant. But in that kind of made the Department of Justice and Janet Reno not break up Microsoft. But also, and I remember Steve Ballmer, who was the head of sales at the time, very aggressive man. He said, to hell with Janet Reno. There was ridiculous arrogance at Microsoft because of that, which really ticked off the U.S. government. But anyway, Microsoft beat the government. But the EU, God bless them, because they keep all companies in check from a privacy perspective too, which I love. They made Microsoft offer versions of Windows in Europe without Windows Explorer as part of it. But you could still get there, because even today you can go to Windows Explorer and type in CNN.com and it'll go over to the Internet Explorer. All that legacy code is left there because of that whatever. And so what happened was, investors love Microsoft forever. I invested in them for years until growth slowed. And those are the best investments when there's a lot of pricing power. It's not good for the consumer, but if you're an investor and you have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders, you don't care. And oligopoly is a little bit different. And Microsoft, obviously, much less monopoly now because Apple, being the phoenix it is, it rose from the ashes. But oligopolistic markets would be the credit card market. Visa, MasterCard, Amex, who charge insanely high, unfair fees to merchant retailers, like up to 3 or 4% each to merchant retailers when retailers sell stuff. And they charge us consumers like 20%. Like, what is that? Crazy. So that's an oligopoly. And they got away with it for years because of that. There was a lot of market power. And so thank goodness you have all these awesome payment companies, Stripe, PayPal to a lesser extent, and others, and other brilliant Irish-based payment companies that are putting these oligopolies in check, so that there's not going to be an oligopoly anymore in the credit card market, which is great. But those are usually great investments, companies that have pricing power, enough market power that they can maintain high profit margins.